I'm joined by Senator Moran, Republican from Kansas, and Senator Shaheen, Democrat from New Hampshire. I'm going to start with you, Senator, understandably. Obviously, the news overnight comes as a shock, but not as a shock. Is Vice President Harris the right choice, do you think, now to take on Joe Biden's mantle? Do you think others should be given a choice? I appreciate you've been over here for the last few days, but you must have a view on what is happening here.
Well, first of all, it's nice to be here at the Farnborough Airshow. Senator Moran and I are co-leading a bipartisan delegation from all across the United States. We're mostly appropriators, so we fund airplanes like the ones we see behind us. But we're also on the Armed Services Committee, some of us. So it's exciting to be here to see what's happening and to promote United States innovation. On politics, I haven't been in the United States for several days, but it's going to be a very interesting process. People are very excited. I think Vice President Harris has moved very quickly to build support, but the delegates to the convention will decide ultimately if she gets the nomination. So I think we'll see a lot of activity in the coming weeks.
Would you support her?
We are waiting for the president to address the nation later this week. President Joe Biden has done an excellent job investing in America over the last 4 years. He deserves a tremendous amount of respect and credit for his willingness to step down in what he believes is the best interest of the country. So I'm going to wait to hear from him.
But do you have a candidate in mind, I guess is the real question?
I do not.
Right, so you at the moment are reasonably agnostic on who you think ultimately should be his successor. We'll wait for the plane to take off so we can hear your answer.
Well, no, I think it will be important to have someone who will carry on the mantle of the president. And clearly the vice president has done that, but we're going to wait and see.
So a continuity candidate would be something that you would be looking for?
I think that's important.
Okay. Let's look at it from the other side of the aisle. We're sitting here in Europe. There is serious concern over here about what a Trump 2.0 presidency would ultimately mean. We all heard what J.D. Vance said the other day at the RNC. There is a concern that America is going to become more isolationist. Is that your perspective?
It is not my hope, and it's certainly nothing that is foretold. That's not going to happen if we get the right policies in place. For 75 years, Republican administrations, Democratic administrations, America has been hugely engaged in NATO, supportive of the cause, and at a time in which Putin has invaded Russia, Russians have invaded Ukraine, it is not a time for America to back off of its commitment around the globe. My experience in being here and talking to foreign leaders is that they have significant determination, but it takes the United States to have success. And so as a team, Europeans and Americans, NATO's and our allies have a role to play in the world. And I think there's a justification for us making certain that we do the right things in a way that we share the burdens with our allies.
Yep.
But I don't expect America to walk away from the world in any administration.
So you voted for Ukraine aid in the past.
I did.
Do you think that aid is at risk?
I do not. But again, President Trump, when he was president, made it pretty clear that he expects our European allies, our fellow NATO members, to do more. And that was absolutely the right thing, to encourage and, in fact, to insist that they do so. And we've seen results of that. It's happening. And, again, I think there's a path forward in Ukraine for success, for a victory. And I think that it's important for us to continue to pursue this cause.
And I think it's important to point out that aid package passed overwhelmingly in both the House and Senate with strong bipartisan support. So while it took longer than any of us had hoped, it got there with a lot of strong bipartisan support.
Do you think that a democratic government in the United States, a Democrat government in the United States would be less isolationist than a Republican administration?
Look, I expect whoever the next president is to do what's in the national security interest of the United States. Our role in the world, our role in NATO in supporting the Ukrainians in this war, the unprovoked war that Russia has instigated in Ukraine, our support for the Indo-Pacific, for providing a counterbalance to China. All of that is in our interest, and whoever's president, I'm sure, is going to do what's in the best interest of the United States.
Let me make this point that the world is going to change. I mean, as politics is changing in the United States and you focus upon what's happening in the U.S., we're going to have additional challenges in the next 100 days, in the next 4 years. And as the world, our adversaries are aligning against us, from Iran and their proxies, Russia, the South Pacific, and China. So when you ask about whether or not the United States is going to be an isolationist country, one, the answer is no. But two, we're not going to have a choice because the challenges are going to be so great to our own nation.
But the priorities are important. Is Asia, is China a bigger priority than Europe? You talked about burden sharing. What does Europe need to do to share the burden adequately?
So a number of my colleagues were opposed to aid for Ukraine, Republican colleagues, because they said the focus should be China. But the reality is what we demonstrate with our European allies in Ukraine determines what happens, what response, what happens to the South Pacific and China is activity. So the world watches to see if we're capable, and we need to demonstrate that. And it's not just about Ukraine. It's about American security, and it's about making certain our adversaries, present and future, know that when America's committed to something, they're there for the long haul.
Benjamin Netanyahu is going to address a joint session in a few days' time. You sit on foreign relations. What do you want to hear?
I would like to hear him talk about what he plans to do to end this war. I would like to hear him say that they're going to increase humanitarian aid to all of those Palestinians affected in Gaza. I would like to hear him say that he's going to initiate elections in Israel so that the Israeli people who have been demonstrating against his leadership understand that there's the potential for an option. I would like to hear him say that he's going to figure out how to resolve some of the challenges with southern Lebanon, so that we don't see an increased war in southern Lebanon. So I hope he will talk about all of those issues. I would be surprised.
Yes, that is quite the list. Senator Shaheen, Senator Moran, thank you both indeed for joining us here at the Farnborough Airshow and braving the weather with me. It's great to see you both. Thank you very much indeed.
Weather.
Very British weather.
Great to be back with you. Thank you.
It's nice to see you both.